Hey listeners, thanks for dropping in. I'm Christy.
And I'm Melissa. And this is Buried Motives, where we dig deep into the details of some of the most gruesome
dirtbag murderers. Hey listeners.
Welcome back to Buried Motives.
Thank you for joining us today. This upcoming week is St. Patrick's Day in Canada.
And what would St. Patrick's Day here at Buried Motives be without a greedy dirtbag?
Ooh, greedy like a leprechaun.
That's right. Like I alluded to last week, the case we're going to talk about today is one that makes me so mad.
You guys, she was getting angry before we even hit record, and I have no idea what this is about yet.
Well, it's about greed, and greed makes me angry.
True. That's a bad motive for killing, by the way.
It is. It's so absolutely senseless. This murder was committed by a dirtbag that didn't have a reason to be a dirtbag and committed a murder that he didn't need to commit. It was all absolutely senseless.
Not that we're saying people have good reasons to murder, but stuff like this is extra infuriating.
When I can't understand the reasons or wrap my head around it, I get angry. This dirtbag was someone who professed to want to help others. A dirtbag hiding under the guise of working to become a doctor.
Hey, I hate him already.
Yeah, no.
I hate this guy. I'll hate him for you. That's what a real friend does.
That's right. You don't even have to know the case. And you're like, I'm with you.
I am. I'm there.
This is a case where everyone was not exactly as they seemed. And it really opened my eyes to the underground culture that exists at university campuses. And just how far some students will go to feel secure in their futures and satisfy their needs to succeed.
Is this going to be like a Jennifer Pan case?
Well, it did remind me a lot about Jennifer Pan, but it was because of the pathological lying. And maybe that's why this dirtbag irked me so much too. He's a liar.
Hands on fire.
That's right. The drive to succeed is not necessarily a bad thing by itself, but when coupled with a diluted sense of how success is measured, it can have deadly results. And that's definitely what happens in this case. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I don't have my throat punch shirt on today.
It's okay.
My shirt says good times ahead.
Which will be good times, Christy.
It might be a lie. We'll see.
Okay.
Melissa actually had to restrain herself from continuing to write notes on this one. Even this morning when we got together to record, she was still, I just got to write one more thing.
It's so true. I just have a lot to say about this case. I don't know how you all feel about it, but I hope you'll share your comments with us. Let me tell you a little bit about Taylor Dean James Sandeson. He was a bright and ambitious young man with a promising future ahead of him. Born on March 2nd, 1993, and raised in Amherst, Nova Scotia, Canada. At 22, Taylor stood over 6 feet tall and weighed about 220 pounds. He was known for his sharp intellect, quick wit, and an unwavering determination. Raised in relative poverty, he was driven by a desire to break that cycle and create a better life for himself and others. In his home growing up, there was always enough, but he just didn't have the extra.
So it was more lower middle class.
Right. There was enough, but it wasn't a lot.
Not excess.
That's right. From a young age, though, Taylor would shoulder the sense of responsibility for his family. When he was very young, he was assessed as being advanced for his age, starting school early and quickly gaining a reputation as a protector, especially for his younger brother Connor, who was autistic. When his parents separated as he began school, his mother, a licensed practical nurse, struggled with shift work and back problems, forcing her into lower-paying jobs at Walmart and McDonald's. At 12, Taylor declared himself, quote, the man of the house, and took his role very seriously. By 16, his mother noticed that he was stressing out about money.
That's really sad.
One of Taylor's best outlets for him became baseball, and the family made sacrifices to ensure that he could play. At 15 or 16, he said he hitchhiked to Cole Harbour to reconnect with his estranged father, Dean. Do you know that Cole Harbour is where Sidney Crosby is from?
No, I didn't.
It is.
Ooh, fun fact.
Years later, Taylor would admit to his mom that during this visit, he had smoked a joint with his father. She had always believed that he had started using marijuana later, at the age of 17, when an autoimmune liver disease prevented him from drinking with the rest of his friends. Taylor's friends knew he'd actually begun much earlier than that. I question if this was just a way for him to escape all the responsibility he was feeling like he was shouldering.
Oh, I would think so.
Mm-hmm.
And every parent finds things out after the fact.
Right. While he was dabbling in drugs, he still kept up his grades and his responsibilities at home and his commitments to his teams. The summer before university, Taylor's mom suspected that Taylor had started dealing drugs. She thought it was only small amounts, not realizing the extent of his involvement. She worried that it would interfere with his education, but he used university as a justification. They actually had conversations about this.
Oh, wow.
They were pretty open with each other. He needed money to pay for tuition and the cost of living while away from home. It seemed that his mother's fear of his drug use and dealing, that it would interfere with his education, were unfounded. Taylor thrived at Dalhousie University, enrolling in the Faculty of Science and studying physics, doing well in classes, maintaining a social life, and even joining Gamma Phi chapter of Sigma Chi fraternity in his second year.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it would be tough as a parent not being able to financially help your child and then to know that this is what they're turning to still have these good goals in their life.
Yeah, it's almost like an oxymoron of character.
Yes, it's definitely a rock and hard place kind of situation.
Mm-hmm. In a way, he's doing this noble conquest of trying to get an education for himself and better their standing in life, but not necessarily going about it in the greatest way.
Right. A more dangerous way for sure.
That's right. At the time of his disappearance, Taylor had been dating a girl named Mackenzie, a 19-year-old university student, for 6 months, and he had a fairly large friend group. He was described as someone who loved bringing people together and never wanted anyone to feel excluded. Many of those close to Taylor believed that he was planning to leave dealing behind, that he was trying to harness his entrepreneurial spirit, venturing into multi-level marketing companies, starting a smoothie business, and recently he had been considering getting into real estate. It seemed he was open to trying all of the things to succeed.
So selling drugs was not his long-term plan.
No, he wanted to get out of it. He'd even started a tutoring business to make extra cash on the side. But his need to serve others had him turning his lessons into YouTube videos and sharing them with first-year students.
Oh.
Instead of actually charging them money and sitting with them.
That's fabulous.
Yeah. Taylor told his best friend that he, quote, realized how hard it was in first year. So he started putting tutorials on YouTube for first-year students who never had money so that they could actually follow him if they were feeling stuck on something.
That's awesome.
Right. Which I think says a lot to his character. Even though he had this idea of, I'm going to make extra cash this way, this legitimate way, it ended up not working out so great cash-wise for him because he had a soft heart and was providing them free of service.
Right. And I know my daughters have definitely used YouTube tutorials to help them understand a concept in school.
Mm-hmm. And I think it also speaks to how smart he was.
True.
That he was able to do this. It just is such a waste to me. On August 13th, 2015, the Thursday before his disappearance, a man named, quote, Devin, because nobody knows his real name, arrived at Taylor's house carrying a big black duffel bag. The two men went upstairs with the bag, and when they came back down, it was without the bag. Taylor quickly introduced Devin to his girlfriend, then shooed him out the door. Whatever arrangement they had made that night in his bedroom, Taylor kept to himself. On Saturday, August 15th, 2015, Taylor spent the day as he often did, playing baseball and working out in the gym. That night, he planned to go out with Mackenzie, but something seemed off to her. As they got ready in his new bedroom that he had just moved into at the back of the frat house, he appeared preoccupied, distracted by something weighing on his mind. At 10:30 p.m., he told Mackenzie he had to step out for a few minutes. He had a meeting to go to. This meeting was supposed to have taken place earlier in the day, but it had been pushed back. His acquaintance had requested that they wait until late evening to meet. Taylor grabbed the black duffel bag and his cell phone, but left behind his wallet, medication, and keys, items that he would never normally go without for a long time.
Which would seem to me that he was not going to go very far to meet up with this person, and it was going to be a quick exchange.
Right. But Taylor would never come back that night. Around that same time that Taylor was leaving his house, his mother, hundreds of kilometers away, was suddenly gripped by an unshakable gut feeling. An instinct she couldn't explain.
Oh my goodness, that mother intuition.
Mm-hmm. At 10:27 p.m., she sent her younger son Connor a text, asking if everything was okay with him. Taylor's mom, Linda, had thought her gut reaction had been about her younger son who was going out with friends that night, and it wasn't something that he did very often, so she automatically thought it was about her youngest son. 1 minute after she sent a text to Connor, acting on her gut feeling, Taylor stepped inside the apartment of another Dalhousie University student.
My goodness.
By 12:30 a.m., Mackenzie and Taylor's friends began to worry. She had gone out assuming that he would just meet up with her, but he never did. At first, when she called his phone, it rang before going to voicemail. By 2:45 a.m., the calls were going straight to voicemail. His phone was either dead or turned off. The next day, Taylor's father was alerted to his disappearance by his friends. His stepmom worked on filing a missing persons report, and his dad reached out to his younger brother. Connor received a Facebook message from their father at 6:01 p.m. on August 16th.
The day after. It read, quote, "Taylor is missing." This was a surprise to both Connor and Linda, who had been preparing to have Sunday dinner with Taylor that night. But he would never show up. News of Taylor's disappearance spread rapidly, especially on social media. Some friends actually reported that they were surprised about how quickly the reports of Taylor being missing went up. Surprised that it wasn't even 24 hours that had passed since he had been seen, that there was hysteria starting. It seemed kind of out of place, especially when you consider he was a uni student that had just not checked in. Yeah, but when you really know somebody, you know when they're missing.
Right.
He didn't show up for Mackenzie. She would have known immediately that something was off, something was wrong, because that was not his character.
That's right. Overreaction or not, Linda was terrified and tried piecing things together. When she learned Taylor had left the house with what she had believed was 4 kilograms of marijuana, she was hit with a devastating streak of, again, mother's intuition. Taylor was dead. She immediately believed that there had been a drug deal that had gone terribly wrong.
Oh, no.
On Monday, August 17th, based on this intuition, she went to the police with all of this information. Desperate for answers, she laid it all out to the police. My son was dealing drugs. This is what he was involved in. He's gone missing. Major crimes took over the case because of the possible involvement in drugs and because Taylor had a liver disease that he required medication to take daily.
Oh, right. And he left it.
Mm-hmm.
Which means he was expecting to return.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that he had taken off.
No, he wasn't expecting what was going to happen to him. After only a couple of days of investigating, police agreed with Linda. They suspected Taylor had met with foul play, but they didn't know where he was. Can you imagine what limbo that would be for parents? To be told something bad's happened, we don't know what it is, and we don't know where he is.
No, that's awful. That's a nightmare.
Yeah. Without a body, there would be no closure.
Not even a suspect, not even knowing who this person was that he went to go see, where he was meeting them.
But they know for sure something bad has happened.
Oh my goodness.
After Taylor's disappearance, police searched his bedroom, uncovering a heartbreaking reminder of the life that he was meant to live. A handwritten note outlining his vision for the future. In it, Taylor detailed his ambitions, mapping out a plan to accumulate over $100,000 in investment by the time he was 25. But his goal wasn't just wealth, it was generosity. Next to that goal, he had stated he wanted to use his success to help others, giving back to those who needed it most.
Because he knew what it felt like to go without.
He envisioned a life of innovation and influence, striving to develop ideas that would make the world a better place. Above all, he wanted security, a life where money was never a concern. A stark contrast, actually, to the risks he was taking to pursue that dream.
That's true.
Tragically, at the bottom of the note, he had scribbled his timeline for achieving his last stated goal. It said, before he died. Beside that, he had jokingly written, quote, hope to make it to 30.
No way. And how old was he at this time?
22.
22. Oh my goodness.
The cruel irony of that statement is unbearable. Taylor had plans, dreams, and a determination to achieve them, but he never got a chance. His life was stolen before he could build the future he had so carefully outlined. The discovery of the note only deepened the sorrow for those who loved him. It was a glimpse into the promise of the life that should have been. When police told her that they believed that Taylor had met with foul play, Linda said she was drawn to 1210 Henry Street. It was an irrational thought, a mother's instinct, again, pulling her toward a yellowing complex that she had never stepped foot inside.
But she knew the police had been there searching for answers previously, and her body told her that that's where answers would be found.
Oh my goodness. So it's not like she had this gift outside of this experience.
It didn't sound like that, but she said her body physically made her run there. She could not stop herself.
Oh my goodness.
William Michael Sandeson, known as Will, lived in that very building. Born on September 27th, 1992, he was the eldest of 4 boys in a seemingly picture-perfect Nova Scotian family. His parents, Laurie and Michael Sandeson, raised their boys on a small farm 100 kilometers outside of Halifax, a property that had been in their family for generations. The farm provided a wholesome upbringing with chores, responsibilities, and a strong sense of family connection. His mother worked for the Nova Scotia government in the Department of Agriculture. She was the president of the local Rotary Club and coordinated the local 4-H program. His father instilled the value of hard work, making him help on the farm and work part-time delivering feed. He taught Will that there was no such thing as a good liar because no one had a perfect memory, and other morals that would promote being a good person. Will's childhood was filled with warmth, family vacations to Florida and the Dominican Republic, and school trips to Italy and Greece. In high school, he traveled to Ireland with friends, broadening his horizons beyond rural Nova Scotia. By all accounts, the Sanderson family was close-knit and supportive, with Will's younger brothers, Adam, Matthew, and David, looking up to him. David, the youngest, idolized his big brother and saw him as a hero. He actually wrote a paper on it, believing that his older brother would never give up on anything until he succeeded.
Wow. What a contrast in upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
Taylor definitely was loved very much, but Will never had to feel like he had to be the man of the house. He got to be a kid. He didn't have to worry about finances. He had to worry about what was his next vacation.
Mm-hmm. But both had such a promising future.
Yes.
Will, too, excelled academically. Before being accepted into medical school at Dalhousie University, he had studied medicine in the Caribbean at Saba University. It was his dream to study sports medicine, a career path that seemed within his grasp after years of dedication. He was just about to begin. Sports medicine allowed Will to marry 2 of his passions, academics and sports. While earning first-class honors in kinesiology, he remained heavily involved in athletics. He was a gifted varsity track athlete at 5'10" and 150 pounds. When he didn't make a team, he found other ways to be of use. After being cut from the volleyball team, he stayed involved serving as a statistician for the team. He found ways to still participate and give back to the team. He volunteered at various places in the community and even worked at a home for adults with disabilities.
Okay, I'm really having a hard time foreseeing how this is going to go so wrong. Because he sounds like he started out like a great kid too.
Yeah, he absolutely was this fabulous person.
Yeah.
But beneath this perfect son image, there was another side to Will. A side that few had seen. A side that was worried about appearances and making a name for himself. Will's teammates would describe him as, quote, spoiled rotten. Another friend would cryptically make the comment later that Will was suppressed at home, which I didn't quite understand. It sounded like he had this beautiful upbringing, but maybe he wasn't able to explore different avenues?
Or he was a teenager and they had house rules?
Yeah.
And he wasn't allowed to just run amok and do whatever he wanted?
Right. Most people who knew him said that he was harmless, even if he could get angry when he was drinking. Everyone agreed Will was motivated to achieve more, do more, and be somebody important. And for Will, that meant accumulating wealth. In his efforts to make money, he started selling drugs, including cannabis, ecstasy, and magic mushrooms.
Oh, okay. If anyone's listening and you're thinking about doing this as a side hustle, please don't.
No, not a good idea.
No, it doesn't end well for the people selling it, the people buying it.
No. Will denied trying to involve others in the trade, but he did admit he wasn't very discreet in his drug dealings. But he didn't really feel like his parents knew about it. As he got more involved in the drug world, he purchased a gun. He said he was told to purchase a gun by an associate in order to protect himself as he moved merchandise back and forth.
So just in case.
That's right. He said at the time he didn't know how to purchase one illegally, so he went through the proper channels and purchased one legally. It didn't make a difference to him since he never planned to use it. He claimed few people knew he had it, keeping it locked in a safe at his apartment most of the time. In August of 2015, Will was just days away from starting medical school.
Wow.
Will knew medical school was going to be harder than his previous schooling, requiring more of his time. He anticipated that he would find it more difficult to keep up with the demands of dealing drugs, so he was looking to streamline his workload. He started looking for a local supplier around the Dalhousie campus that would be able to serve his needs and eliminate the need for him to drive to Montreal frequently to secure product.
Instead of just quitting it.
Yeah, we'll come to that.
Because it doesn't sound like he was hurting for money to get by with what he needed.
No, and I'm not excusing anybody's behavior for selling drugs, but I can see Taylor's rationale of having to sell drugs to put himself through school. That was not the case with Will.
No, he had everything handed to him.
His family wasn't extremely rich, but they were well off enough. And let's face it, in Canada, if you have good enough marks, most schooling can be covered. You don't have to be extremely wealthy to do schooling.
It's true. But
it is difficult.
Definitely.
But it's doable.
Yes.
You don't have to resort to selling drugs.
No. And I would say you're probably more upper middle class if you're going on all of these holidays, doing all of these things.
Right.
Especially nowadays. There's more of a distinction.
But Taylor was looking for a way to save some time so that he could, quote, study. I don't know about you, but neither Taylor or Will fit the image that I have in my mind of what a drug dealer would look like. But maybe that shows how naive I am. But this just floored me. That these two, they were both smart. And they were from good families. They were high functioning. They were attending and passing university.
Yeah, they were motivated.
Yeah.
And they had goals. They wanted to be better people.
The image for me just doesn't gel. And maybe that's why this whole case was so shocking. If we have learned anything, though, dirtbags can come in all shapes and forms.
Absolutely.
As investigators dug deep into Will's past, they recognized that Will was a young man willing to take extreme risks for financial gain. These risks would lead to Taylor's death. When there are no witnesses left to a crime, all the investigators have to go on are the word of a dirtbag and the evidence left behind. And in this case, those two things did not support one another, prompting this dirtbag to continually change his story to match the evidence that he believed the police had or would uncover.
Right.
It was honestly so hard following how many different versions of events that Will would give. I have to give credit to the author Kayla Hansel, who wrote the book Second Degree. She gave a fabulous rendition, and I don't think without it, I could have put all of his different tales in order or described them to you well enough.
Okay, so if you want more information, go read that book, listeners.
Yes. Second Degree is actually the second edition. Originally, the book was called First Degree.
Oh, interesting. Is that a foreshadowing of change in sentencing?
It is. And that is another point that angered me about this case. Yes. Although Taylor hadn't shared the specifics of the drug deal he was planning to make, once the police knew drugs were involved, they were able to track Taylor's movements that night as he carried a very large duffel bag of weed around. Taylor's mom had initially believed that it was around 4 kilograms, or just under 9 pounds of weed, that Taylor was moving. She believed that this was a large amount for her son, who she believed only dealt in very small amounts on campus.
But it's a duffel bag right full?
Yes.
So that's got to be more.
It is more. The amounts that she believed he was dealing was enough to keep Kraft dinner on a poor university student's table. In reality, the duffel bag was more similar to the size of a hockey bag than an overnight bag.
Oh my.
At 3 feet, 6 inches long, 18 inches high, and 18 inches wide. And it contained over twice that amount, over 9.5 kilograms or 20 pounds of the devil's lettuce.
Wow.
Yes. It's estimated that the amount that he was carrying around would have been worth about $90,000 on the street at the time.
So that'd be even more now.
Woo! Police were first alerted to the fact that Will might be a witness to Taylor's disappearance very early on in the investigation. Investigators discovered that the last call to Taylor's phone had originated from an IP address linked to a group home for adults with disabilities in Lower Sackville. Seeking to identify who had been in contact with Taylor, police visited the residence. While Will was employed at the group home, he was not there when the officers arrived. A co-worker relayed the message to Will that the police had been there and were asking about him on Tuesday, August 18th. So Will reached out to the authorities and met with them that afternoon.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that coming.
Some of his behaviors are very interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I think it's because he doesn't think he'll get caught, or he thinks that he can talk his way out of anything.
And if I show that I'm cooperating, that makes me less suspicious.
Yes. In his first interview with police, Will was not a suspect. He was just a concerned citizen following up with the police like they had asked him to do. He was there on his own free will. On August 18th, 2015, Will sat across from Halifax Regional Detective Constable Keddy in an interview room at the downtown Halifax police station. At the time, the 23-year-old medical student at Dalhousie was merely a witness to the disappearance of Taylor. Will presented himself as polite, cooperative, and in good spirits. He spoke calmly, displaying no signs of distress, and the only unease, if any at all, that Will displayed was that he had an appointment to get to and was in a little bit of a time crunch. He explained to Keddy that before his acceptance into Dalhousie Medical School, he had studied medicine in the Caribbean, and while those studies did not count for credit at Dalhousie, he noted that the money spent counted towards my debt. The discussion soon turned to Taylor and their recent dealings. Will acknowledged that Taylor had offered to sell him 9 kilograms of marijuana. However, he claimed that he had rejected the offer because a sample he had examined on August 13th was of poor quality. Instead, he said that he had agreed to buy a smaller quantity for personal use and had arranged for Taylor to deliver it to his Henry Street apartment after 10 p.m. on August 15th. According to Will, Taylor never arrived. He said, "I waited around. He didn't come. I went out and there was no one there." He mentioned that at approximately 1:30 a.m., after his girlfriend had returned to the apartment, he sent Taylor a text message suggesting they meet later in the day, but he never received a reply. When asked what he thought had happened to Taylor, Will responded, quote, "I don't really know. I assume he's hiding." One of the more unusual aspects of this interview emerged when Keddy requested to see Will's text messages with Taylor. Will hesitated before explaining that he had deleted his text messaging app days earlier, fearing that Taylor's disappearance would lead police to investigate his connections in the drug trade. He said, quote, "I got nervous about buying marijuana." Keddy then asked him to reinstall the app, and when he complied, their previous conversations reappeared almost instantly.
Oh, he was not expecting that.
No, he was not. At a glance, though, the messages seemed unremarkable. And with time running short, Keddy agreed to drive Will home for an appointment, and she ended the interview. Before Will left the station, though, another officer took photos of all of the relevant text messages on his phone because they didn't have time to sit there and go through it with him. So he's like, "I'll just do screenshots of it."
So they didn't know exactly what they said when they let him go.
Right.
Okay.
At this point, Will remained a cooperative witness, and the conversation didn't arouse immediate suspicion. Because as they're just briefly going through it, they're like, "Oh, yeah, he did talk to him." So his story kind of checks out.
Right.
However, as officers reviewed the text messages in detail, inconsistencies began to emerge between Will's account and what had actually transpired. Those discrepancies would soon transform the soft-spoken medical student from a witness into a suspect, leading police to place him under surveillance and escalate the search for Taylor. So now they're like, "Oh, crap, we think something's happened." This seemingly composed, forthcoming, and unconcerned student was definitely not what he appeared to be. But I think if you go back and read the transcripts of the interview, there are hints throughout that interview of his true character. He talks about his debt, and that isn't even what they're talking about, but it all comes back to money for him. Police grew increasingly wary of Will's version of events. His first interview suggested that Taylor had never arrived at his apartment, but pictures of text messages contradicted that. The text suggests that Taylor had indeed arrived at Will's apartment. At 2:52 a.m., Will texted Jordan McEwen, who was also involved in the drug trade. He told him that Taylor had taken the money without delivering the marijuana. Will had also sent texts to Taylor's phone complaining that he had left and not come back with the stuff, and questioning Taylor about what he was planning to do. Clearly, the two had met up. Concerned for Taylor's welfare and suspicious of Will's statements, investigators conducted a warrantless search of Will's apartment at approximately 6:30 p.m. on August 18th.
So that means they had permission to enter?
No, it was warrantless. But they were allowed to do it under the law that they thought Taylor might have been there and that he was in trouble.
Okay.
Though no clear signs of foul play were initially found, police discovered a surveillance system connected to a DVR, a quantity of magic mushrooms, and an empty handgun box. Police were very interested in the DVR system, which could contain crucial footage. It was swiftly disconnected to prevent potential tampering and having it erased remotely. With enough cause to suspect foul play, Will was arrested on August 18th between 8 and 8:30 p.m. for misleading police, kidnapping, and drug trafficking.
Ooh.
Yes. His second interview that same night presented an entirely new version of events. Now, Will claimed that 3 masked men had entered the apartment when he and Taylor were sitting at the kitchen table counting money. He alleged that they were there to intimidate Taylor over an outstanding drug debt. Will said that he was struck on the head as he tried to make a break for his room, and he fell down. The intruders told him to stay down, and he had listened. That is when he heard the noise of a scuffle and a loud sound. When he finally gained the courage to lift his head, when everything was quiet, he said Taylor was gone, as well as the majority of money and the drugs. He said he believed the intruders left through the front door. Will said he was terrified of people finding out about the drug deal, and so he cleaned up everything. During this interview, he tried to convince police that his security cameras were faulty and didn't actually work to record video, that the footage just gets recorded over every 20 minutes. All of this sounds, of course, very fishy, and investigators immediately spotted inconsistencies with Will's new version of events. How did these masked men enter the apartment? Why was there no surveillance footage of their arrival or departure? If he truly did fear for Taylor's safety, why had Will waited for so long to come forward?
Oh, it's so clearly a lie.
Exactly.
That would be an easier thing for the police to have believed up front if he came to them and said, hey, this is what happened.
Exactly.
If this actually happened, this is the story you lead with. This is not the, oh, actually, I need to tell you something story.
Yeah. Well, wait. There's another story he comes up with.
Oh, liar.
Uh-huh. Makes me so angry. He just thinks he's so smart and can just talk his way out of everything. And if you pay attention closely, you're going to find that every time he finds out a new piece of evidence that they have against him, he incorporates that and explains it in his next version of events.
Wow. Really thinking that he can just pull the wool over their eyes.
Absolutely. Will would face yet another round of questioning the next day to answer the questions about all of these inconsistencies that the police are noticing. By that time, police had gotten a warrant. It had come through at 4 a.m. on August 19th, and they had uncovered critical forensic evidence. Bloodstains containing Taylor's DNA were found on the side of the table and the chair in the kitchen, and on the bathroom floorboards in Will's apartment. A bullet was lodged in the window frame, and it also tested positive for Taylor's blood. A 9mm handgun loaded with 1 bullet was found locked away in Will's gun case. It bore traces of blood splatter consistent with close-range shooting. Police noted that there was no shower curtain in the bathroom, which went along with the brand new shower curtain they found from Winners in Will's backpack when he was arrested.
Like, oh yeah, I gotta buy a new one of those.
Yep. Police also found stacks of 20s with blood in them, and they were found underneath the garbage bag in the bathroom garbage bin.
Oh, sneaky. That's actually a smart hiding spot. Like, not for the police to find it, but if you were wanting to hide your money, hiding it underneath garbage?
Yes, stacked underneath.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty smart, actually.
There was also surveillance footage that confirmed that Taylor had entered the apartment at 10:26, but never left. And the DVR logs revealed that the security system had been manually turned off during the time frame of Taylor's disappearance between 11:33 and 1 a.m.
So they couldn't see him being removed from the apartment.
Right. Faced with this mountain of evidence, Will invoked his right to legal counsel and largely refused to answer most of the questions during the third interview, which took place on August 19th and lasted pretty much the whole day, from 9:50 a.m. to 6:40 p.m. During this interview, Will fails to earn an Oscar for his performance. Detectives are wise to his act and note that he is controlled and calculated with his distress. He looked like he was upset and crying, but it is clear his tears were meant to elicit sympathy for himself rather than display genuine remorse or concern for Taylor.
Ooh, we've seen videos like this before of interrogations, and it makes you want to slap them until real tears do fall out.
Yes!
It's so disingenuine, and I feel like it's so disrespectful even to their victim.
Right? I would prefer no emotion over this fake emotion.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
It just made me so angry. Under pressure, Will altered his story again to match the evidence that he now knew police had. This time, he claimed that there had been 2 masked intruders, not 3. To account for why the intruders weren't seen on the video footage, he said that they had been lying in wait inside his apartment.
Well, of course they had.
Yeah.
But then you just have to rewind the footage and see them get in.
Well, no. He said that they had gotten in through his roommate's bedroom window.
Oh,
Yeah.
little ninjas.
From the rooftop where they kept a barbecue.
Oh, yeah, really like ninjas.
Yeah. When these 2 men entered the kitchen wearing black morph suits, one of the men, who he guessed was over 6 feet tall, was armed with a gun exactly like his own. Only his had a silver slide, where this one was all black. Will said that the 2 men were after Taylor because he owed them money. He said that he had been forced into his bedroom and ordered to shut off the security system. Again, altering his story to match the evidence that he knows police have.
Right.
He's explaining why the police have found that the security system was turned off.
And it doesn't even make sense that these men would come hide in Will's apartment to wait for Taylor.
No.
How would they even know that Taylor was going to be there?
They didn't. Nobody knew where Taylor was going that night. He says that while he was in his bedroom, that's when he heard a gunshot. According to Will's third rendition, when he emerged, the men had stuffed Taylor into the duffel bag, along with the marijuana, and carried him away, each taking one end of the bag. Before they left, Will said that the intruders told him to mind his own business and to clean up, and then he could keep the dirty money that they hadn't collected.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. So he says that's what he did, using his Swiffer wet jet and getting rid of his shower curtain because it had blood on it. Why the heck is there blood on your shower curtain if you just told police that Taylor was shot in your kitchen?
Yeah, we all know why there was blood on the shower curtain.
Yes. When continually pressured for more information, Will tells police that the intruder shot Taylor in the back of the head. Throughout the interrogation process, investigators observed behaviors that signaled deception. Will's shifting accounts mirrored the evidence that was presented to him, indicating a pattern of manipulation. His composed yet erratic storytelling, combined with the lack of urgency in reporting a supposed abduction, painted a picture of someone trying to rewrite the past rather than reveal the truth, as he claimed he was doing each step along the way.
Well, we know he has a good imagination, that's for sure.
Yeah. There were red liar flags flying high all throughout this interrogation. If masked intruders had executed a brutal crime scene in his apartment, why hadn't he called the police immediately if he had nothing to do with it?
Mm-hmm.
Instead, he had just meticulously attempted to erase any trace of what had happened, suggesting he was more concerned about covering his tracks than seeking justice for Taylor.
I'm assuming he would say, oh, I was scared for my own life. They knew that I had seen.
That's right. When that was pointed out to him, Will insisted that the reason he had cleaned up the bloody crime scene and disposed of the shower curtain, wiping down all the surfaces and removing evidence, was because he was terrified, not because he was guilty. Good job,
I'm on top of
Christy.
it today, too. We're so in sync.
Oh. With mounting forensic evidence, surveillance footage, and inconsistencies in his statements, investigators pivoted from a kidnapping case to a homicide investigation. On August 20th, 2015, William, 23, was formally charged with the murder of 22-year-old Taylor. His attempts to manipulate the narrative had failed. Physical evidence, digital records, and his own words had all converged to reveal a chilling reality. Taylor had been killed inside Will's apartment, and all signs pointed to a calculated effort to conceal that crime. Even more evidence would come to light in the coming days and weeks that would tell what I feel is a chilling story of premeditation. Police would learn that Will had asked his roommate Dylan not to be at their apartment after 8 p.m. that night.
Oh.
Dylan had dutifully vacated just before 8. Will also told his girlfriend not to come over early. When she arrived after midnight, she noticed that the apartment smelled like bleach, the same thing that was noticed by Will's neighbor, Justin Blades, the next morning. Police would also conduct an investigation on Will's car and family farm because video footage on the morning of August 17th showed Will making several trips to take garbage bags from his apartment to his car wearing white gloves. And the next day, cell tower records indicated that Will was in Truro, where his family farm was. Police would find Taylor's DNA in the trunk of Will's car and in a black duffel bag on the missing shower curtain and on a blue tarp and towels All of these things were found on the family farm in an abandoned ice cream truck in a field.
Ooh, he took it home.
Mm-hmm.
So then involving his family.
Yes. In another garbage bag, just 11 meters from the rotting ice cream truck, was a letter from a bank addressed to Will. So they knew that it was all from his house. Police also learned a large amount of marijuana, 20.9 pounds of it, had been left at William's younger brother's, Adam's apartment in Halifax.
Oh my goodness, it's so clear what happened.
Yeah. Adam would later testify that Will had told them, quote, "There might be something that stinks in the basement" on August 17th. Adam and his roommates went to investigate the next day. They found vacuum-sealed bags of weed concealed in a Dalhousie backpack, a KitchenAid box, and small garbage bags in their basement. They called a lawyer the next day and had him turn the drugs over to the Halifax Regional Police. In a preliminary hearing held in October of 2015, with the evidence laid out before them, including a text message about dismembering his girlfriend just sent weeks before, and the evidence that he had medical training to do so, the judge deemed Will highly motivated to flee and denied him bail as he was waiting to go on trial for murder.
Wait, he said he had dismembered his girlfriend?
Not quite. The text message would actually never be heard by any jury. But while Will was communicating with another woman, he said he suspected his girlfriend Sonia of cheating on him, and he told this other woman through text that if he found out it was true, he would put Sonia's head and hands in a bucket of lye and dump her body on Will's family's farm.
Oh yeah, because that's going to get a girl.
Yeah, it was actually this text that they found that prompted the police to search the family farm and find the evidence there.
Wow. And so when the little brother turned in all that marijuana that was stashed at his house, was that before or after his brother was arrested? Or was that kind of all happening at the same time?
It was all happening at the same time. So he had been taken into custody on the 18th, and they had found the marijuana on the 18th. And then they called the lawyer the very next day. So before he was officially arrested on the 20th, his brother and his roommates had called the lawyer to turn it in.
Okay. That does speak to how they were raised.
It does. And it means that Will was raised with enough values and morals to know what he was doing was wrong and to do better.
Oh, his poor family. Like, his family would be victims in this as well.
Absolutely. It was like they didn't even know him.
Ugh.
And it would be so hard to go through a murder trial and support your son through that when there was this deception that he had going on with you as well.
You'd feel like you didn't even know your child.
Mm-hmm. Will's first-degree murder trial began in mid-April 2017 in the Supreme Court of Nova Scotia. From the onset, it was clear that this would be no ordinary trial. The case was filled with legal battles, dramatic twists, and a defense that fought desperately to cast doubt on the prosecution's theory. By the time the jury delivered its verdict in late August, the trial had seen an unusual number of interruptions, heated arguments, and a glimpse into a crime that prosecutors claimed was carefully planned but poorly executed.
And sorry, do they have Taylor's body at this point?
They don't.
Yeah, and that's really hard to get a conviction without a body.
Mm-hmm. But they know from the amount of blood that they found in his apartment that it's not likely that Taylor survived.
Right.
But, of course, Dirtbag Will is not admitting to anything.
Yes.
He's just saying they took the body with them. I don't know where he is now. One of the most striking aspects about the trial was the sheer number of voir dires, 10 in total. From my understanding, I am no legal expert, but these are like mini trials within a trial where the jury was removed from the courtroom so that the lawyers could argue over the admissibility of evidence. Typically, these issues are resolved before proceedings even begin. But in this case, the legal wrangling continued well into the trial itself, and it caused so many interruptions.
Oh my goodness, that sounds like a nightmare.
Mm-hmm. Tensions escalated in the trial when Will's own defense team attempted to shut down the trial completely. The reason? Their own private investigator, acting without their knowledge, had provided police with crucial evidence against their client.
No way.
Yes, it was an astonishing turn of events, and one that threw Will's legal strategy into disarray.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right in the middle of the trial.
Wow.
In the fall of 2015, as Will prepared his defense against the first-degree murder charge, his legal team had enlisted the expertise of Martin & Associates Investigators, Inc., and Bruce Webb, a retired RCMP officer, was assigned to the case. He was known for his meticulous approach and unwavering commitment to justice. Webb immersed himself in the defense strategy, attending confidential meetings and contributing to the development of Will's case. However, as he dug deeper, a gnawing doubt began to take root. Webb harbored suspicions about Will's innocence and grew increasingly concerned that the police investigation might not have exhausted enough to uncover the actual truth. In the summer of 2016, driven by his unease, Webb sought counsel from his neighbor, Staff Sergeant Richard Lane. During a candid conversation, Webb confided his misgivings about the thoroughness of the police work and his own fears that justice might not be served.
Oh my goodness.
Lane listened but chose to keep their discussion confidential, leaving Webb to wrestle with his own conscience. The case took a pivotal turn when Will's defense team identified 2 potential witnesses, Justin Blades and Pokiel McCabe. Both men initially told police that they had no significant information about that night that Taylor disappeared. Sensing, though, that there might be more beneath the surface, the defense asked Webb to re-interview them and uncover any undisclosed details. With the help of Will's brother, Webb's pursuit led him to Blades, who had relocated to Ontario, attempting to distance himself from the haunting memories of that night.
Ooh.
Blades was reluctant to revisit the past, but Webb's persistence and assurance eventually coaxed him into sharing the harrowing account. Contrary to his original statement, Blades revealed that he and McCabe had heard a gunshot and, upon investigating, saw a man bleeding profusely in Will's apartment. The 2 didn't want anything to do with what had happened, so they decided to leave the apartment quickly. A short time later, the 2 witnesses decided that they just needed to carry on with their evening's plans and pretend like nothing had happened. Blades said he ignored Will's request to bring around the car because he didn't want to be involved. As they were leaving the building, they looked into Will's apartment again. Taylor's body was no longer slumped over at the kitchen table, but Blades said he saw streaks of blood leading from the chair down the hallway to where he knew Will's bathroom was.
Oh.
Will's security video that was recorded on his DVR did show Blades and McCabe cross the hallway the first time and returned to the apartment a second time before the recording was stopped at 11:33, corroborating their rendition of events.
Okay.
So police knew that they had been to the apartment. This was a huge shift from their earlier claims of ignorance about the whole night.
Yeah.
Shaken by this new information, Webb faced a moral quandary. His role as the defense investigator bound him to confidentiality, yet his duty as a former law enforcement officer compelled him to act. Unable to reconcile these conflicting responsibilities, Webb once again turned to Sergeant Lane, sharing Blades' account and expressing his inner turmoil. Blades admitted that he had been terrified and had kept his mouth shut because he believed that Will had ties to the Hells Angels, an infamous worldwide motorcycle club that has been connected to weapons smuggling, violence and racketeering, territory wars, and drug trafficking. While it was founded in California, it has heavy ties in Montreal, where Will was getting all of his drugs from.
Mm-hmm. That club can be quite prevalent in Canada.
Yes. And so there hasn't been any concrete evidence that actually tied Will to the gang. And of course, he adamantly denies it. But at the time, this is what Blades and McCabe thought. And that's why they didn't want to come forward.
And I could see that Will, if it was truthful or not, could have lied about it to make himself seem more dangerous.
Right. But recognizing the gravity of this whole situation, Staff Sergeant Lane facilitated a discreet communication between Webb and the police, ensuring Webb's involvement remained confidential. With Webb's assistance, the police re-engaged with Blades and McCabe, who, now feeling supported, provided statements that starkly contradicted their initial interviews. They recounted hearing the gunshot and witnessing the man bleeding in Will's apartment, details that significantly bolstered the prosecution's case.
Mm-hmm.
However, this collaboration between Webb and the police, unbeknownst to Will's defense team, introduced a complex legal dilemma.
Oh, yeah. What do you do in that case?
Well, when the defense discovered Webb's covert actions during the trial, they argued it constituted a breach of solicitor-client privilege and compromised the integrity of their strategy. They sought a mistrial, contending that the defense's own investigator had inadvertently strengthened the prosecution's position. Webb, remember he's a former police officer, testified in one of the voir dires that, quote, "If I didn't come forward, I would be obstructing justice." The first trial judge acknowledged the breach but denied the mistrial request. The witness's testimony was allowed, and it was very damning to Will's case. Will's defense lawyer, a friend of the family's, took the tactic of not denying that something violent had happened in Will's Halifax apartment the night that Taylor had disappeared. But he argued that Will was not alone, that others were present that night, and their involvement had not been properly investigated. Throughout his closing arguments, Tan painted a picture of a man who, if truly guilty, had made an astonishing number of reckless decisions.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, exactly. But he argued that if Will, a smart man, a man studying to become a doctor, one of the noblest professions, had carefully planned this crime, why would it have been done in an apartment where his girlfriend could have returned at any moment, and when his neighbors were at home? Why would he leave his security system recording, effectively capturing crucial information? Why would he restore the texting app that revealed his drug dealing negotiations with Taylor? Why would he hide evidence in such obvious locations like his brother's apartment and his parents' farm? Tan hammered away at the Crown's case, questioning the strength of the forensic evidence. The police's blood splatter expert, he argued, had been of very little use. He had only examined things through photos, not the crime scene itself or the suspected weapon. He also suggested that the police had mishandled the investigation, failing to follow up on key evidence. He reminded the jury that no one had ever heard first-hand testimony of any drug deal between Will and Taylor. There had just been inferences made by investigators. Except that Will says all those things in his interrogation videos.
Yeah.
Which were played for the jury.
He's really stretching.
Mm-hmm.
When your only defense is, well, he can't be that stupid.
Right. But that's the defense he went with.
Yes, honey, he can
Yeah.
be.
At the heart of the prosecution's case, however, was one central question. Did Will plan to kill Taylor? They made it clear that they did not think that Will was some criminal mastermind, but they argued it didn't mean that he hadn't orchestrated the murder. A plan to murder somebody doesn't have to be a good plan, they said.
True. Amen to that.
Yeah. The Crown prosecutor laid out a very clear motive. Will needed money. He was on the verge of starting medical school at Dalhousie University. That would have costed well over $100,000. He had already maxed out a $72,000 line of credit, and he was having to borrow money from his girlfriend at the time. His parents had expressed concern about his growing debt, and in response, he had reassured his father that the money would be paid off by September.
Oh, just a couple weeks later.
Yeah. Then there was the fact that just 6.5 hours after Taylor was last seen entering Will's apartment, Will sent a text saying that he had paid off his student loan. The implication was clear. Taylor's death had solved Will's financial problems.
Oh, because the marijuana was worth about $100,000.
That's right. Throughout this trial, Will remained emotionless, staring straight ahead as arguments unfolded around him. He had chosen not to testify, but when questioned by police in the days after Taylor's disappearance, he had given multiple versions of what had happened that night. As a refresher, the one that they were going with at the trial was that 2 masked men had climbed through his roommate's window.
Yeah, ninjas.
Yeah. And then they had shoved Taylor's body in the duffel bag and carried it out through the front door. This trial was not only difficult for the jury to follow because of the multiple storylines, but for those seeking justice for Taylor and for Will's own family as well. His parents had been absent for most of the proceedings, only appearing in court at the very end. They later accused the Crown for deliberately keeping them out of the trial by issuing subpoenas, preventing them from attending under the pretense that they might be called as witnesses, though they never were.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was an interesting part of the case. And it also shows that his parents are still willing to support him.
Right. But that is actually surprising to me because you know how you have that protection from a spouse not having to testify against you? That doesn't compute to parent-child relationship. I never thought of that.
Oh, we'd have to look up that.
Yeah.
Or somebody that's more versed in legalese. They could let us know.
Absolutely. Because that is actually kind of surprising to me because typically the family of both sides are involved in the trial. Not involved, but are present.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they said they weren't allowed to be because they were on the witness list, which witnesses aren't allowed to be in the court until after they've given their testimony.
Right. So call them first.
Right.
Interesting.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
On August 24th, 2017, after months of legal battles and days of deliberation, the jury reached its decision. A panel of 7 men and 7 women, which again I found interesting because it was 14, not 12, but I think that included their alternates. They found Will guilty of first-degree murder. The verdict meant they believed beyond a reasonable doubt that he had planned and deliberately carried out the murder of Taylor. It was a dramatic conclusion to a case that had gripped Halifax. But the legal battle was far from over. Appeals and further courtroom showdowns would soon follow, proving what his younger brother had already known about him. Will Sandeson wouldn't give up. In June 2020, the Nova Scotia Court of Appeal ruled in favor of Will, stating that the trial judge had erred in not declaring a mistrial. The court determined that this late disclosure significantly infringed upon Will's right to a fair trial, leading to the order for a new trial and an opportunity for Will to outline a new version of events at a new trial.
Get out.
Yes. New trial means new version of events or new version of the truth.
Because he's already had this chance of spewing all these other lies that he knows didn't work.
Right. And now he's actually listened to all of the prosecution's evidence.
Right.
So now he's going to spin a completely different tale.
Like he has this whole entire time. Every time new evidence was brought forth, he changed the story.
Right. This time, according to Will, he was only securing a local dealer, so it would be easier to get out of the drug business. His girlfriend had been on his back to get out of dealing, and plus med school was going to take up a lot of his time. But he had purchased his gun only 2 months before to help him move drugs around. So this to me suggests that he was ramping up. He wasn't planning to stop dealing.
Right. And at the beginning, didn't he say nobody knew that he was a dealer, including his girlfriend?
That's right. Will said that he was taken aback by how quickly Taylor had secured the product for him. This made him a little wary of dealing with Taylor, but he went forward with the plan to purchase 9 kilograms of marijuana from Taylor for $40,000. However, he said his plan was to only pay Taylor $10,000.
But it's worth $100,000.
That's right. Will told the jury his reason for shortchanging Taylor was because he believed Taylor might have been involved in a home invasion of a friend where about $3,000 worth of drugs was taken. That friend had borrowed money from Will, and so Will felt the need to reciprocate. It was later proven that Will's knowledge of this home invasion only came after Taylor's disappearance.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but during his trial, this is what he's telling the jury. He alleged that during the deal at his apartment, a confrontation ensued, leading to a struggle over his gun, which he had brought to the meeting to intimidate Taylor with. Oh yeah, and for his own protection because he said that he was scared that Taylor might rob him because he had robbed his friend.
Yeah. He's bringing you $100,000 worth of drugs and you think he's going to take $3,000 from you like he had to your supposed friend.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Will now said that when Taylor realized that Will only had $10,000, Taylor was upset and he threatened to take his drugs and leave if Will wasn't willing to pay the agreed upon price. That's when Will said he lifted up his bulky sweater to show his handgun in his pants pocket. Will claims that Taylor tried to take the gun and they wrestled for control of the weapon. He said eventually he got control and pointed at Taylor, telling him to leave. But that's when Taylor sneered at him and said, quote, "You're done," and lunged. Will said he pulled the trigger. Will claimed that he pulled the trigger to keep Taylor from killing him.
Oh, so now it's self-defense.
Yes.
What happened to the ninjas?
No, the ninjas are gone, Christy. That's a different story. Different time.
Oh.
Yeah, no ninjas this time.
Okay.
What I find curious about this is when pressured to tell more information in his third interrogation with the police, he had told police that Taylor was shot in the back of the head.
Right.
And now he's saying that Taylor had lunged at him and he shot at him.
So it would have to be in the front of the head.
That's right. I find that very curious. Will said things were a blur, though. He said that he went next door to warn his neighbors, Blades and McCabe, and they followed him back to his apartment. And this I got a kick out of, too. He went to warn his neighbors, not get help, but make sure they weren't going to get into trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, just so you know, I just had to kill this guy.
That's right. In one of his early testimonies, he had actually said that he had called out to his neighbors and they had never showed up. But that was before he knew police had video surveillance of them entering the apartment.
Right. I'm sorry, but this guy is a total loser.
He is such a dirtbag.
He is.
Yes. After Will admits to haphazardly cleaning up the apartment, pouring undiluted bleach on the floor until it left him coughing, he also admitted that he turned his security cameras off and placed Taylor's body in a duffel bag and put the bag in the trunk of his car. He testified that he drove toward Turow and eventually pulled the car to a carpool parking lot, took Taylor's body to a dike, and dumped it in a tidal river in Colchester County that feeds the Bay of Fundy. He said he concealed the body under garbage bags, knowing that the bay's powerful tides would soon take it away. He maintained that the shooting was unintentional and solely a reaction to a perceived threat.
Hogwash.
All of it is hogwash.
Yes.
I think so.
Because of the evolving, changing story.
Mm-hmm.
If he had come right out and had said something like this right from the beginning and stuck to his word, then you might question it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But we know who the liar is. And although Taylor was dealing drugs, that was not his character.
Right. There was a lot of interesting arguments about if Taylor's body would have actually fit in that black duffel bag.
Right? Because he was tall.
He was over 6 feet, and the bag was only just over 3 feet.
Oh, did he dismember him?
There is some thought to that. And that's why there was so much blood in the bathroom.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
But Taylor's body's never been found, so they don't know for sure.
Which is so tragic.
It is for his family.
Yes.
But Will's going with the story that this shooting was all out of self-defense. His new lawyer led his testimony to try and dissuade the greed motive that the prosecution presented. She stated, quote, "Drug dealers don't become doctors."
Yeah, they do, obviously. He's already admitted that he was dealing drugs and he's going to become a doctor.
Right? I thought there's 2 ways to argue this statement. She's wrong. Obviously they do, just like you said. Will admitted it. And in his own rendition to the court, he said Taylor was threatening to leave. So why wouldn't he just let him leave?
Right.
Right? But Will had to stop him by threatening him with the gun first. He had a choice to call the whole deal off, but he didn't want to because he wanted the money and the drugs.
Yes, and I am sorry, but there is no profession that makes you such a good person that you're not going to commit a crime.
Right?
Yes.
But the other way I thought the statement could be argued was she was right. He wasn't going to become a doctor because he got caught.
True.
Right? It's always both.
Touché.
His lawyer argued Will was financially well off. He had 3 part-time jobs, 1 at the assisted living facility and 2 at Halifax hospitals. And don't forget that he was running his own drug dealing business. He said he was pulling in about $8,000 a month from drug deals and had only gone into debt himself to lend money to other drug dealers that would pay him back.
Oh, she said he couldn't be a drug dealer because he's going to be a doctor. But hey, he was earning his own money dealing drugs on the side.
That's right.
What is it, honey buns?
Yes.
What?
Yes. She said he had everything going for him in life. Why would he intend to murder somebody?
Okay, Melissa, if you and I were on that jury, we would have busted a gut. We would have been taken out and held in contempt.
That's right. Sometimes I get such a kick out of some of these defense arguments.
How stupid do they think the general public who has been chosen to be on this jury are? That you can say he was not a drug dealer, but he was a good kid dealing drugs on the side to put himself through medical school.
That made him have no financial problems.
Ay, ay, ay.
Right? She was trying to pull the wool over the jury's eyes.
She had to grasp at straws. What else could she do?
Right. She had Will testify that he was, quote, under next to no financial pressure at the time. He defended his financial transactions that were called into question during the first trial by saying that the text to his dad that said, quote, "will be paid this September," just meant that he was looking for a way to remove his mom from his line of credit accounts so she wouldn't know about the debt anymore. That's why he told his dad the debt would be paid. Again, it's showing that he used evidence that he knew about from the first trial and is trying to make up a story that goes along with this. Oh, I didn't really mean the debt was going to be paid. I just meant that I was going to remove my mom from the account so she wouldn't know that I had the debt anymore. Right. But he used the word paid.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, but it was just a lie to my mom to make her feel better.
Right.
But I'm a good guy.
Yeah. The prosecution challenged Will's self-defense narrative, asserting that the murder was premeditated and financially motivated. They argued that Will had orchestrated the drug deal at his apartment, a controlled environment, and had brought a loaded 9mm semi-automatic handgun to the meeting.
Yes.
The presence of the firearm, coupled with the location choice, was a deliberate plan rather than a spontaneous act of self-defense. They also pointed out that Will had made sure to purchase 7 liters of bleach. prior to that night.
Oh, okay. Case closed.
Yep. The prosecution actually got quite cheeky and were like, is that a normal amount of bleach for a university student to have?
No. And I hate to say it, but especially a male 22-year-old university student to have. I've heard stories about those dorms. I don't think a lot of bleach has taken place in there.
No. The prosecution pointed out Will's actions following the shooting. Instead of contacting the authorities, he disposed of Taylor's body, and he took measures to clean the crime scene. Such behavior was inconsistent with someone who had acted in genuine self-defense and was more indicative of an attempt to conceal a premeditated crime. After approximately 23 hours of deliberation over 3 days, the jury found Will guilty of second-degree murder, rejecting his self-defense claim, but not fully supporting the idea that Will had planned the murder.
What?
Yeah.
I think the bleach alone is a slam dunk.
Right? I thought so too. It was surprising to me that they didn't find him guilty of first-degree murder. In April 2023, he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years.
15 years?
Yes. Given the time already served since his arrest in 2015, Will be eligible for parole in 2030.
Oh, that's soon.
5 years.
And he'll still be young.
Mm-hmm.
Ample time to make a lot of bad choices.
Right? What happened to Taylor that night was not a tragic accident like Will claimed. I don't believe it was. Will's need for money, regardless of what he planned to do with it, led him to make the decision to kill, a decision a dirtbag would make. It was an act of cold-blooded greed, a calculated betrayal that shattered lives. Taylor's brother, Connor, conveyed the profound and lasting impact of the tragedy on his life when they told him he actually had to be hospitalized.
Oh.
It was so sad.
He looked up and idolized his big brother.
Right. And with his autism, it made it harder for him to process.
Oh.
He lamented the loss of future shared experiences, such as seeing his brother graduate, marry, and start a family. He said, quote, "I haven't been the same person since." And even he could appreciate the widespread suffering that this crime had caused, saying, quote, "There are so many victims in this murder." Connor and Taylor's mother, Linda, chose not to speak publicly, but submitted a heartfelt written statement to the court. In it, she acknowledged the painful reality of her son's death and expressed a profound sense of loss and disillusionment with the world's cruelty. She also shared the unique anguish of not having a physical resting place to mourn her son.
That would be horrible.
It would be. She noted that without his body, her only place to honor him was the plaque placed by his classmates outside the physics building at Dalhousie University.
I know for myself, you would just always be wondering, where is his body? Where did it end up? Where is it sitting?
Mm-hmm. They did some cadaver dog searches on the family farm, and they had some hits near a pond at his farm, but they actually couldn't uncover the body. And Will did say that he threw it in the water and that it would be washed out to the ocean.
And he had threatened that other girl with dissolving her body in lye.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
It would be so hard not to know where they were.
Yeah.
The family has been vocal about their disappointment in the second-degree murder charge.
Absolutely, they should be.
They feel that that injustice just increases the severity of their loss. Taylor's mother and brother have gone on to seek any sort of justice they can. They have sued Will for wrongful death and have managed to freeze some of Will's assets. To my knowledge, the lawsuit hasn't been fully settled yet, but they've managed to freeze his assets so he can't get rid of them or move them around and hide them. Since being imprisoned, Will has not been a model prisoner. Just before his second murder trial began, he was cited for disobeying a lawful order and threatening others. But he appealed those violations from becoming a part of his disciplinary record.
Because he was going to be a doctor.
Yeah. In my mind, it was just a way of still trying to show that he's smarter than everybody else and trying to smooth talk his way out of things.
Yeah, and above consequence.
Mm-hmm. And he is also still trying to protect his financial portfolio. From the Drummond Institute, the medium security facility in Quebec, Will is still appealing his conviction. It seems he's now sticking with the self-defense story. But still trying to garner sympathy for his cause, he has applied for financial aid to cover his lawyer fees.
What?
Yes. He was denied when it was found that he had assets worth $640,000. Most of it in Bitcoin, and not all of it readily available, but it is more than enough to pay his own lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he had the nerve to act outraged that the court denied his claim for financial aid because he claimed that the money didn't even begin to cover the debts he already had.
Boo-hoo.
Yeah.
Wouldn't Taylor love to be incurring debt right now?
Mm-hmm.
But you took that away from him.
To me, it just shows he is still all about the money.
And has zero remorse.
Mm-hmm.
Ew.
That is the case of the conniving, storytelling dirtbag, William Sandeson, whose plans for greatness were muddled by lies, desperation, and a ruthless pursuit of wealth.
He sounds like a narcissist.
Oh, I think so.
Oh, and poor Taylor's family. My heart really goes out to them. And to have to go through 2 trials and to know that in 5 years, he's going to be up for parole.
And that he still shows no remorse.
No,
Yeah.
He's acting like a punk in prison right now.
I hope the parole board sees through all of his storytelling and does not grant him parole.
No, and I'm sure that's probably why he's wanting that taken off his record, so it doesn't hurt his chances of parole.
Oh, for sure. He's trying to retell the story so that it fits his own needs.
Right, because new evidence came up and he's trying to switch it around now.
Mm-hmm.
Ew. I can see why you were so frustrated with that case.
It was just maddening to me because he had no reason to act like a dirtbag, and yet he did.
Exactly. There never is justification in murder, but it stings extra when there's no explanation, like you said.
Right. But that doesn't mean that we won't be back again next week, digging deep into the motives of another dirtbag.
Absolutely. So until then,
See ya.
bye.
I gotta calm down so that I can do a normal test.
Yes.
So you can actually hear how my voice is gonna be. Instead of, he's such a dirtbag!
She's angry already, you guys. She warned us last week this one was going to be a doozy for her. And for once, I'm not the one already riled.
No.
Testing again.
Yes, test. Christy, test and test.
Test, 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 test. Okay, is this enough testing?
Yeah, I think so.
Hey, listeners.
Welcome back to Barry Bono.
Barry Bono?
It's a whole different show, Christy.
Welcome to the Barry Bono Show. I'm Barry.
And I'm Bono.
And this is the Barry Bono Show.
That is a different subject matter.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a good start. Good start.
Yeah.
But pictures of text messages contraindicated that. That's
It's like, is
that's
that
a
a new
medical
word?
term. It is a word, but it's like when I can't give a drug, it's contraindicated.
Oh, contradicted?
Yeah, it says
Okay.
contradicted. That's so funny.
Your inner nurse just came
Yeah.
out.
What the heck is going on our university campuses?
And this isn't even that long ago. It's the Gong Show today. The cat must be crying because the dog is howling. I've never in my home had 7 bottles of bleach.
I actually do right now.
Okay, you guys, if I go missing, Melissa did it.
I don't want to be Bono.
Well, I have to be Barry.
Another Sound Off Media Company podcast.